You're financially cool. If not, here's what to do. Promise you won't be misled if you just tune in to the Daily Bread. Daily Bread, Daily Bread. We have all the tools you need to help you to succeed. Just take heed. Listen to Joaquin. The boy graduated from college, dropping so much knowledge. This is what we do. Educate, motivate, elevate. Educate, motivate, elevate. Educate, motivate, elevate. Educate, motivate, elevate. You can elevate your life. Educate, motivate, elevate. Yeah. Educate, motivate, elevate. Educate, motivate, elevate. You can elevate your life.
I don't think I need an advisor or a coach to tell me to save my money. I know how to do it.
My name is Joaquin Thompson Sr. Like millions of Americans, I struggled financially for many years because I was never taught the basics of personal finance. Today, I'm a financial literacy expert, author, and speaker that teaches students and adults the basic components of financial literacy.
I try to teach women in small businesses to understand, to have a short elevator pitch.
In the entertainment industry, we live in the moment. You know, it's all about being present.
The minister already got a jet. He already has a helicopter. So why do I need to be giving more money to the church?
So the magic of the moment happens in the moment. But that don't apply for finances. You know, that works for being creative.
Right. My goal is to educate, motivate, and elevate people to master the basics of personal finance. I show students and adults how to go from struggling to creating a secure financial future for generations to come.
And it's not a function for most folk of what you can or cannot afford. It's what you choose to afford.
Wow. Welcome to the Daily Bread with Joaquin Thompson Sr.
As a church, I always like to tell the members, Georgia Power don't take scripture.
Right.
You know, it needs money in order to operate this organization.
Immediately, people are making these 3-second decisions about who you are. And so if you're not really sharp and you don't know what you stand for and you can't articulate that, you definitely can't market it.
Like a regular person has financial strain. So it's even more in some instances for someone with a history.
Right, with a conviction or
right.
And like you said, a lot of people are already struggling anyway, but that's why I want to put that piece in there so people understand the importance of understanding, and you brought up a key principle, ownership.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm your host, Joaquin Thompson Sr., coming to you live from Marietta. I want to say Atlanta, but see, I got an Atlanta native in the building, so this one I have to say Marietta, because any other time, I really want to say Atlanta, but it's Marietta, so it won't be no cap. We in Marietta. So I'm your host, Joaquin Thompson Sr. This is the Daily Bread Radio Show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We got a phenomenal show for you all this evening, but let me set the table for you, go over some house rules. So number one, people are always asking me, where did that name come from? The Daily Bread. What is the Daily Bread? So for me, I was born in the 60s. I was raised in the 70s. And when I was a little young guy, what we call AKA a little jit, people used to call bread, we used to talk about money, and we called it bread, right? And then on the flip side of that, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother growing up. And my grandmother used to read this devotion. It was called a Daily Word. And she read it every day with her Bible. It was the Daily Word. She read it every day. Didn't miss a day. So that was the daily. So when you put the two together, gives you the daily and the bread, hence the Daily Bread Radio Show. Now, people always ask, too, I get it on social media. People text me when I run into them in the street. They're like, hey, what is the Daily Bread about? Because the name doesn't tell you what the product is about. So this show is a show about financial literacy. The difference between our show and what makes us unique is this. We do what we call the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of financial literacy. And you may be saying, what does that mean? That means this. The good, 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, all of these different people on social media saying they're making all of this money. But at the same time, on the flip side, repossessions, all-time high. Bankruptcies, all-time high. Foreclosures, going back up to where we were pre-COVID. People getting laid off from AI, the advent of AI. So all of that to say, it's still a lot of people out here in the world that are struggling. So we talk about the struggling part too, because nobody has a straight trajectory like this. I don't care if it's a stock. I don't care if it's a relationship. Nobody just goes straight up. You're going to have ups, then it's going to come down, it's going to go back up. It's like a heartbeat. That's what makes your heart strong. So we do the same thing on the Daily Bread. We talk about bring on experts like the gentleman I'm getting ready to introduce, so that way you can learn and get information from people that make a living doing what we're doing. This ain't no cap, no fugazi, none of that. But at the same time, we want to acknowledge everybody and where they are right now. Because some people, it just is. You are where you are right now based on decisions that you've made in the past, the economic climate, where you work, your entrepreneur ventures, whatever. That's just where you are. So we like to do both. We don't talk about just, the people making $15,000, $20,000. I get it. Some people are doing it. But there's also some people on the other side that's trying to figure out how to get back on their feet after a medical illness, after a divorce. So we talk about everything. And we keep it lighthearted, because the thing about it is this. The last thing I'm going to say before I introduce my guest is this. We don't do religion on the Daily Bread radio show. So Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Episcopalian, AME, CME, whatever your E's are, we only do one thing on the Daily Bread, and that's, if you see me pointing up like this, that's God. Because it's my personal belief that everything that he's bestowed on me, everything that's attached to me, my family, my kids and grandkids, my wife, shout out to my beautiful wife, Tanya Thompson, A1. You A1. And God brought you through. So we like to just keep it even. That's what we call even. So without further ado, we're going to bring somebody to the show. This gentleman next to me, hey, I'm not going to jump ahead, but I'm going to tell you, I've been knowing him since the young man was probably about 17 and a half. He said he was 18, but he looked real young when I met him. You know, and I was like, he's probably like 17 and a half. But me and him went to the real HU together, hint, hint. And we've been friends ever since. Brilliant. This guy is he's a brilliant entrepreneur. I mean, he's had a successful career in business as well. And he has a unique opportunity for you this evening. None other than Mr. Eric Chennault, a franchise steward. And I want to welcome you to the show, Eric.
Appreciate it, Brother Joaquin.
So how you trying to be cool?
Very extremely gracious with your introduction, so I appreciate that.
Brilliant. No, this brother is brilliant. And the reason I wanted to bring him on the show today was this. And this is why we do what we do on the Daily Bread radio show. Because you have people in your universe and in your network that are experts in what they do. But when Eric was telling me where he's at in this chapter of his life, in working with franchises and with his business, being the CEO of Franchise Steward, the first thing that popped into my mind was like, you got to come on the show. And the reason being is this. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm going to ask you two questions before we kick everything off. When is the last time that you had a conversation about a franchise? Either acquiring a franchise, selling a franchise, how to get into franchise. When is the last time you had that conversation in your community? Right? That's number one. And then after you answer that question, the second question is this. When you had that conversation, who was the expert that you brought into the conversation that could give you some real quality insight, expert opinion, and advice on what to do in that space? So just those two questions alone is why I brought him onto the show. So I'm going to let Eric tell you about his background, give you a little insight into his entrepreneurial journey and how he got to this point, and then we're going to fire some questions that I have from the audience. So Eric, first and foremost, introduce yourself, tell them your background, because some people, you know, when they see stuff on social media, they like, oh, that's some fugazi. He was dressed nice. He sounded good. But how I know he knows what he's talking about.
All right. Well, appreciate it again, Joaquin. Thanks for the opportunity. You know, as you talked about, right, we met several years ago on the campus of Howard University. So
Don't shy away from that, man. We 59.
As I think back to that, I'm like, man, who would have thought we'd have been right here at this point today, right?
Why?
But again, thank God for his blessings and for all the support, community support, family support, everybody else to get into this point. But you know, by way of background, I'll just sum it up to say that you know, the majority of my my professional career has been in corporate America, right? Working in industries from banking to insurance, telecommunications, primarily spending most of that time in either financial services role, in doing some, you know, more technical project management kind of work. But again, most of it is in kind of a finance orientation. So when I think about how I got to this point, I think there are really sort of two reasons I got to this point. One is my experience as a business owner several years ago. So I owned and operated an all-state insurance agency back in 2007 to 2012, almost 2013. An incredible opportunity. Enjoyed it immensely. It was professionally rewarding, personally rewarding. I felt like that it gave me an opportunity to really add a lot of value to people's lives, whether it was, you know, helping them save some money or demystifying this whole thing about insurance and just explaining coverages and helping them to really be in a better position to make decisions for themselves.
Correct.
And that was really kind of the first time, I think, in my professional career where I really felt more of a connection to the work I was doing, right? There was kind of more of a purpose, right? Mm-hmm. It was, you know, the other stuff was good because I was, you know, learning a lot and exposed a lot of different areas, but there just seemed to be a connection, right? And a lot of it had to do with just the people-to-people interaction on a day-to-day basis. And so if you remember, that was during the Great Recession, the global financial crisis, right? So that 07, 08, right, when the real estate market was tanking, when everything in the world was crazy, you know, banks weren't lending, all the credit was tightening up.
People walking away from houses.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was in fact, the joke in the business used to be, man, you couldn't have picked a better business model, but you couldn't have picked the worst time to pursue it, right?
Right.
So it was. So I had to make some tough decisions, right? At that point, you know, my kids were much younger. You know, the financial considerations, the financial responsibilities were, you know, pretty high, right?
Hefty.
Not that they ever really go away, but
hefty.
But at that time, right, significantly more concerns from that standpoint. So, you know, I sold my interest in the business and went back into corporate America. But always with the intent of kind of coming back to business ownership.
Correct.
So it was, you know, okay, you've got some things you need to do, so let's go ahead and make that happen.
Right.
So fast forward some 10, 11 years later, you know, my kids were, you know, either out of the house or close to being out of the house. And so you didn't have those same kind of financial pressures. And so, you know, started thinking about, okay, it's time to try to explore this and make this move again. And so I thought back again to my experience with the Allstate agency, right? And so Allstate was, while it was not a franchise, right, it behaved much like a franchise, right? And what I mean by that is that, you know, you have sort of the same kind of brand standards you got to uphold. They got to look and feel the same way.
Correct.
You've got marketing systems that are in place. You've got, you know, your training support. You've got territory restrictions and considerations you got to factor in. You know, you've got this network of other agents and other folks out there kind of doing the same thing you're doing. So again, behave much like a franchise. The only difference is You don't have franchise fees, you don't have royalty payments, and it's not governed by the FTC. But I knew, again, that I wanted something more like that, right, where there's this box, right, this box of stuff that you get. And so started evaluating a couple opportunities, looking at different franchise models, and decided for one reason or another that, they weren't the right ones for me.
Okay.
Having working with a person who was sort of guiding me through this process, and she said, I'm going to take a flyer here. You ever thought about being a franchise consultant? And at that point, up to that point, I had not. But I sat back and started thinking about, man, think about what you were doing as an agent before, and thinking about, the role that she had been playing up to this point. And I was like, the light bulb just went off. I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. And so, I started digging into it and started, again, think about it.
Right.
If you think about the role of an agent, and again, the role of a consultant, right? You're basically sort of playing, you're the intermediary between the provider and the customer, right? You're really that trusted advisor that's sort of helping people, guiding through a process, right? Doing that
Fiduciary.
whole need-based analysis, like, okay, what's your problem? How do we solve your problem? And whether it's insurance, is an insurance product, whether it's, in the financial consultant or franchise consultant space, it's, let me help you figure out the franchise that sort of will help you get to that point. So, again, all these parallels were there, right? And so then the other piece of that was, from an economic standpoint, the overhead is a lot lower, right? Because as an agency owner, you've got to have a physical location. You got brick and mortar. You got to be able to house certain documents there. You've got to be able to have a place where people come in to transact business.
Correct.
Versus the franchise consultant, right? It's a virtual kind of operation. Doesn't matter where you are, right? So all those things started to make sense, right? And it's like, you know what? Really, this is the path. And then the icing on the cake is you're still now being in a position to help people who are aspiring to be business owners through the franchise model to get there. Because again, helping them to see, here's what's out there, here's what matches your goals and objectives. So you're still operating in that space, right? So there's still the value add that you're doing in that deal.
But I think, I would say for me, so let me unpack some of the stuff that you said, right? Just going all the way back to, these are lessons that I want people to take away on the Daily Bread radio show is this. And that's why I say we do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, the transparency part was, had the insurance agency, and because of the financial landscape of what was going on, and the responsibility, the way that he said it was very tactful and how he presented it. But here's the reality of it. Sometimes people, that's why I say on social media, a lot of times on social media, the part that I don't like is the fugazi around, it's just going to be a straight trajectory, right? Mm-hmm. And there's something wrong. And the other part I don't like is people will make other people feel some type of way because they have to go back into corporate. But it just makes sense, right? Because if you got a certain skill set and you running your play, you run the play and you say, okay, well, where I'm at right now, it's not producing fast enough, and I know I have another skill set that I can lean on. Why wouldn't you lean back into that, make it happen? It's almost like coming up for air, right? Like when you go swimming. You done went underwater for a little while, but you say, hey, I just need to come up for air, but I'm not letting this go. So the plan is, even if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later, I know I'm going back there, but in the meantime, I got to regroup, get my footing, get back on some equal footing, and wait for the season to change. Because the season changed because he said, hey, now my kids are at a position where they're pretty much, if they're not out of the house, they're getting close enough to be out of the house for me to do some projections where I don't have the same accountability from a family standpoint because that's what comes first. And now I can go back and entertain this. That's number one. Number two, don't give up on the dream. So he could have said, well, hey, I'm going to just work in corporate. That didn't work. And here's the other thing about being an entrepreneur that people don't understand. You could do it the first time, because we've done it before. My wife and I had a bakery. And we had the bakery from 2004 to 2015. 11 years, commercial bakery. Did all kinds of high-end stuff, everything from a cupcake to a high-end wedding cake. And then when the bakery closed, even though we ran that for 11 years, the takeaway was, man, why we didn't keep it open? Every time why y'all ain't still open? Why y'all ain't still running? I'm like, the season, it changed. The season changed. And when the season changed, you have to have the wherewithal to say, hey, I got another skill set that I have. I was in healthcare. So I got another skill set in addition to this. But guess what? I'm going to pivot, get into that, regroup some more, do some other things. Because the thing about being an entrepreneur, that ain't easy. That's not an easy life. They make it look good on social media and, it's just going to be. I'm like, no, bruh. That is a...
Peaks and valleys.
That's a hard life. So I want to make sure that, and when I bring on guests, I want to make sure people are not sitting there and just looking like, oh, yeah, he had it. No, you need to sit down and listen to what these experts are saying, because we talk about process. Mm-hmm. It's a reason why he got to this point and this point in time, because a lot of it has to do with timing, but then all of the skill sets. Think about all of the stuff that he said up until this point. I was in finance. I was in corporate. I was in project management. All of those skills are transferable to what you're going to do for yourself. So while you saying, why am I here working? Why am I in this job? You should be taking the job and be ascending in the job to expand your skill set. And then when you get your toolbox full enough, then you could jump off and do your thing again. But while you there playing on their time and doing their thing, it ain't just a job. You should be learning and trying to be the best at what you do, because all those skills are transferable. So now we done pivoted. Eric done went back. Now he's in the franchise space. So one of the big questions I had just up front, because I want to make sure it's not a miss, and this has been on, I remember when you reached out to me and told me that's what you was doing. I was like, first thing popped in my head was like, how can I do it? So for the lay person that's out here that's saying, sounds good, I know about different franchises, whether it's Krispy Kreme, Marco's, Little Caesars, Pizza Hut, Domino's. You got these different spas that are opening up, right? Planet Fitnesses and all this other stuff. But the reality of it is, how can the person in the listening audience make that real, where they can run a play and you could give them advice on how they can run a play in order for them to acquire a franchise?
Yep. It's a great question. But let me go back to something quickly before I jump into that. And again, the thing that I failed to acknowledge, which is very critical in helping me to make that transition, was really the support and the partnership that I have at the house, right, with my wife. So it wouldn't be possible to sort of make these moves and these plays without that sort of support and cooperation and understanding, right? So,
A1.
So anyway,
A1.
I need to acknowledge that, and so that was had to be a big part of the decision to make that move, right?
Correct.
Not if you want to have some peace. Gotta
That's the
have
first salesperson. You got to be a good salesman at home. If you're a good salesman at home, then you can.
I always say, if I can sell my wife.
You got to wait for the right time. Be like, I've been thinking. It crossed my mind, but I mean, it ain't no big deal.
That's right.
I ain't leaving today.
That's right. But anyway, go back to the second question. I think the thing is, this franchising space can be confusing, right? Some reports say there are as many as 3,000 franchises. Some say over 4,000. I don't know what the right number is, but there are a whole lot of them. And it's not, typically the first thing we think of are food and beverage, right? You see them everywhere. You go to the strip mall, you see them on the corner, they're everywhere. But really, I mean, you got all kind of franchises out there, right? You have franchises that are in the service space. You have them in, you've got them in property management. You have in, obviously, food and beverage. You have senior care. You have pet operations. You got, Kumon and, educational-based franchise. So you got franchise in a variety of spaces out there. So, A lot of things are franchises. So that's first and foremost. There are a couple ways that you can try to figure out, what's the best route for you, right? One way could be similar to the same approach you have if you were trying to buy a house, right? So you have real estate professionals out there who can represent you, right? And helping you to do this in a more efficient way. But you can do it yourself, right? You can go out and take every weekend you got and go out and map out a bunch of houses you want to look at, and you can go out and try to look at houses one by one, right? Or you can enlist the services of somebody like a real estate professional to help, narrow your search, right?
Navigate.
You give me your criteria. I'll help you figure out, we don't need to look at these houses over here. We need to focus on the ones over here, right? Because that's what
you're not pre-approved to go look at them houses, so we need to stay.
Not pre-approved, and with gas prices going up to $4 a gallon.
Oh my gosh! Shout out to Trump.
So,
shout out to the president.
But similarly, right? If you enlist the services of someone like me, who's a franchise broker, franchise consultant, right? My charge is really to help you to navigate this process. Really to understand, how to simplify it, right? How to figure out what's there, how to figure out what's best for me. And that's what I go back to when I mentioned that need-based analysis, right? Which is,
correct.
There's a series of questions, your likes, your dislikes, what kind of work are you currently doing, right? What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What are your constraints, right? Do I want to work? Do I want free weekends where I just, I just want to grind Monday through Friday and I'm out on the weekends? Do I want to build a legacy for my family, right? Am I just trying to replace my job, right? Am I trying to do something that I want to just harvest, in 5 years and sell it and ride up to the sunset? So, there are a list of things that we would sort of uncover during this discussion, which really sort of helps us to figure out which particular concepts or brands might align to your goals.
Okay.
Right. So, conversely, if you're doing your own, you can go directly to a franchise's website and say, "Oh, I want to get a Kumon web. Let me go to Kumon, pick it up, pull it up, and they'll tell you the franchising path." But your conversation is only going to be with that particular franchise brand, right? And they're going to try to sell you on their brand, if they determine that this is a good fit. You haven't compared.
And just like that analogy you used about the houses, when you go to a brand, this is something that I always talk about from a business and a street analogy, right? If you show interest in something in the street, or if you show interest in something in business, you're not leaving with the money. You're not gonna leave. It's like if you go to a car dealership, if you say, "Oh, I'm looking for a car," they're gonna get you a car, right? It's not gonna be what's best for you. It's gonna be what's best for them. And the same thing in this space. So all of the things that you brought up, like you do the self-analysis, see what you like, what your dislikes are, so on and so forth. If you contact any one of these franchises and say, "Hey, yeah, I saw your information and I was thinking about getting a Kumon," or whatever the franchise is, they're gonna make it where it sounds appealing to you because that's their job, is to make it sound appealing. So let me just be clear. If you're going into that space, at the end of the show, we're going to give you Mr. Chennault's information. The reason you listen to the Daily Bread radio show is this. And I'm going to go on and say it because Eric, one thing about Eric, brilliant young man, humble, but I'm going to go on and say it. I'm going to say it for him. You do not need to be going out in this space on your own, trying to figure it out without somebody like him on your team. And the reason I'm going to say that is this. I've seen so many people that say, "I'm going to buy a house and I don't need a broker. I'm going to sell a house and I don't need a broker." Yes, you do. Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So you're going to go out. It's taking you 20 years to save up this money, to do this investment, to get out of where you are right now, and you get ready to put it into something that you have no knowledge about, and you're going to run the risk of losing it all in less than a year to 2. Because keep in mind now, because you always got to go back to the data, right? 80%, what is it now, 80%? Go out in the first 12 months? Call it 50. Even if it's 50% in the first, I know in the first 5 years it's 80%.
So first 5 years, 50% of independent businesses are still around. So half.
Half.
5 years.
Okay, in 5 years.
5 years.
That's half. That's half of all businesses, right? So somebody who's been, we've crossed that threshold in entrepreneurship in our previous life. We went past the 5-year mark. But even after going through the 5-year mark, it's still a grind. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take all of your resources. And some people in their minds, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to start this business. But you're going to have household expenses. And this is one of the biggest things that errors that people make going into being entrepreneurs. When they've been a W-2 or a corporate employee, you forget that you got household expenses. You're talking to somebody and they're telling you your operational expenses for your business that you're in. Yeah, you got the overhead. Yeah, you got the office. Yeah, you got to get a copier. Yeah, you got to get this, that, and other. But you done left your job. So that means, again, you got to listen to what the expert is saying. It's like, oh, I ain't think about that. He said it so humbly. I had to get the buy-in and support from my significant other, i.e. my spouse. Because without her support, it doesn't work. Why? Because you still got the mortgage. You still got the car note. You still got the auto insurance. You still got to pay for the kids to go to school. They still going to go to college. You got tuition. You got all these other things on top of the business. And when you first start off in the business, most businesses are not going to cash flow to support the business and your household expenses and your trip to Aruba. It just not. But people don't want to talk about that. So when you call that person and they say, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, you can get this. You can get into it. But you need to have somebody like Eric on your team like, oh, Kemosabe, wait a minute. What's your household budget? And you like, huh? Yeah, your household budget. Like, what are you contributing to the mortgage? Are you covering the mortgage? Or what's the play at home? People don't want to talk about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with more with Mr. Eric Chennault, a franchise steward, and B, talking about some more stuff, more items, more topics on the Daily Bread radio show. This is something that, unlike a lot of other things that you may learn in school, you may learn in your community.
I thought Mr. Thompson was an excellent educator on teaching financial literacy.
You will have your income, you will have your expenses, you will have assets and liabilities.
The program was very informative.
It was telling us like the fundamentals of how to be financially responsible.
You know, you should learn how to buy a house and buy a car. Also how to manage the bills.
Just real stuff that people don't really talk about, like just investing in community.
You can benefit from economic empowerment. That's the cheat code right there.
One nugget is about stock when he gave like different resources.
The presentation went through litany of things that allowed these young men to understand finances and how those finances can either be of progress in their life or hindrance.
Credit cards, auto loan, home loan, personal loan. What's the probability of you defaulting on these things that you have taken a loan on?
He taught me a lot of new stuff that I never thought I would learn.
Unlike a lot of other things that you may learn in your community, you may learn from somebody else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm fairly knowledgeable in a lot of the information that he provided.
This game is the game that you're going to play in real life.
He's definitely motivated me and enhanced some of the knowledge that I didn't have so I can use it moving forward.
I think it's something that we need for our youth.
This is something that you're going to use from today until you're 15, 25, 75, 85.
My plan is to use tonight, research more into what you taught and develop a confidence in myself.
So he had a book. It state like everything, how to do it, and also he has his own app, has a whole team full of experts, so you can just go to them to help you learn the finance.
screen black. Well, we back. I was getting on my producer, but yeah, what we was talking about off the air was all this stuff that we're sharing with you all. This is real. Like, ain't nobody telling you this, but this is, if you don't have a significant other, because right now on social media, there's a ton of people that are, it's just grifting. Some people call it a grifter. I call it fugazi. And I'm going to just put it out there, especially in our community. People out here on platforms getting paid millions of views, millions of likes. They on a platform giving relationship advice. Nobody on the panel married. Nobody on the panel married more than 5 years. If you ain't been married more than 5 years, how you gonna? I'm a veteran. And in our world, it's like, come on, man. That's like you telling a man that's been incarcerated 35 years, and you just got incarcerated. Matter of fact, you're not even incarcerated, right? And you trying to tell somebody what it's like, how to survive in prison. How you know how to survive in prison? You're not even in there. And you talking to somebody that's who's been incarcerated 35 years? And financial literacy is the same way. If you don't take the time, and this stuff that we talking about, the reason we can talk about it now because we learned it. We done went through it and learned it. Like, you get to a point, you be like, man, ain't no money coming through here. Like, what? Like, what you gonna do? He's like, am I a quitter? I ain't no quitter. Should I close? Should I stay open? Like, what should I do? Like, nah, we got to take care. The first rule for man, a real man, is home. You got to take care of home first, because if there's no peace at home, meaning financial peace, emotional peace, peace, any kind of peace, because in order for you to get into a position to be creative again, you got to have some semblance of peace, because that's the only way that it frees your mind to be able to concentrate on doing other things. So, with that being said, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let me touch on something you mentioned, Joaquin. And that when we were talking about, as you're making out your plan, right, for your business, whatever it is, you can't forget about that overhead, that your household, right? Because that's above and beyond all the consideration for how to run the business.
Correct.
And again, so you talk about experience, right? So that's one of the things that I share with candidates, right? Which is, okay, I've been in this space, right? So I know what you're thinking about, with this new business, right? You're challenged, thinking about where am I going to hire people from, and what am I going to pay them, and all these operational costs, and marketing campaigns, and which one do I choose, and how do I evaluate how effective it is, all that kind of stuff, right? Again, as a business owner, having lived that. But the other part of that is, and this goes to the franchise piece, which is using that example where somebody goes directly to a franchise to have a conversation, right?
Right.
So they're going to give you some information, right? You'll progress to a point where they are sharing the information, which is contained in a document called the FDD, the Franchise Disclosure Document.
Okay.
And so that's a legal document. They're governed by the Federal Trade Commission. Every franchisor has to provide that to the aspiring franchisee. And it has 100, 200, 300-page document. Has everything from, 23 different items, everything from, background about the company, all the way to itemized costs, to, here's the performance of the existing franchisees, to pending litigation, and everything in between. But in that, there are usually some cost estimates in terms of, how much it costs to operate this franchise.
Correct.
And I think the minimum that's required, that the FTC requires them to include when they talk about working capital, is like 3 months, 90 days, right? 90 days ago, but you can blink your eye, snap your finger, and 90 days goes by. So,
right.
So I share with candidates, look, whatever that working capital number, they're talking about, your business operation stuff. Like, so that's, again, your rent and your utilities and operational stuff. But that's not accounting for your household. So if you got a factor in your household, then you need to account for more money than that, right? You probably need to be looking at a year, right? Because you don't know what happened.
Correct.
So again, I think about going back to the Allstate experience. Who knew that you're going to have this global financial crisis from 07 to 2010? Who knew, right? So
because that was definitely not in the planning.
Yeah. So if you haven't accounted for that or accounted for any emergencies or unforeseen circumstances,
i.e. thin margins, because nobody's talking to you about that. And the one thing about when you start and you get into an entrepreneurial space or you buying into a franchise, everybody, which you should be thinking like that anyway. Everybody's thinking they're going to be successful. But that's not the reality of it. We said 50-50. It's 50-50 the first 5 years. And you got to commit to the first 5 years. Some people ain't going to commit to that. But say we get past that, we've done our self-analysis. In your humble opinion, what would be the steps that someone would need to take in order to get into position to purchase a franchise? Like, would they go, first step I would say was contact someone like yourself, get with a broker, find out, like you said, you do the self-analysis. But after that, if we say, okay, we've identified something that we think would work for us, are the franchises, are you doing seller financing? Are you doing SBA, 7A loans? Are you doing traditional loans? Like, what's the best space for us to get into in order for us to make this a reality?
Yeah, so once you've identified concepts or brands that you think might, be interesting to you and ones that would sort of align to your goals and objectives, then probably the next thing you probably need to do is you need to really start thinking about, okay, how I'm going to pay for this, and you really could start to do something on the front end, right? But you've identified. Let's say you've got 3 concepts in front of you that you think are equally attractive, and then you've got some estimates in terms of here's the cost, right? There's a franchise fee component that's usually sort of an upfront fee that you pay once you get approved by the franchisor to represent the franchise. You've got it. That's sort of the first payment you make. Okay. But again, that's after you've sort of gone through the process and been approved, and they've awarded you the franchise. But let's just call that call it $30,000, right? Mm-hmm. The next bucket, right, of cost is are usually related to costs that you would incur once you get open, right? So it's sort of your pre-opening costs, but also your recurring costs. So recurring costs would be things like your royalty payments or your marketing fees that you incur as you earn revenue, right? So because they're going to be a percentage of revenue mostly. Sometimes flat fees, but most of the time a percentage of revenue. But in that big bucket, right, and that big bucket is going to be sort of your estimated cost to open and operate the franchise in that initial year, right? So that's like if you got to buy some equipment or you got to hire some people. Mm-hmm. You got to set aside some marketing funds for your grand opening. You got your working capital piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. That's usually a big bucket, and most people are not going to pay for that out of pocket, right? There are going to be other ways to do it, right? You're going to, whether it's, as you mentioned, SBA loans, whether it's borrowing from your 401k or retirement accounts.
Ooh.
Whether it's...
you just started a whole nother show. Ooh.
Whether it's, unsecured lending, whether it's, equipment financing. There are a host of, financing vehicles out there.
Credit cards.
Crowdsource funding.
Right.
Parents or family support. I mean, there are a lot of ways to fund.
Right.
But there are entities out there who specialize in financing for franchises, right? You can go to banks and do that, but there also are, again, there are entities out there who, their space is
franchise funding for a franchise.
Funding for a franchise, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But I guess that would be, it would be more attractive to some lenders because you following a formula. Is that safe to say? Versus you just starting up, you just being a startup like, hey, I'm gonna start my own X. as opposed to like, okay, I'm gonna do a Dunkin' Donuts,
Mm-hmm.
and they know Dunkin' Donuts comes with certain parameters or guidelines that help. At least that way, it helps you with the percentage of being successful, one, and then also, having a cash flow.
Yeah. So
or predictable cash flow.
Right. So again, if this was a franchise model, right, and if these are entities, or if it's if it's just a traditional bank, right, if these are entities that are used to seeing it in a certain format, right, because they know that with this box, whatever the box is, these are going to have this kind of cost, this line item, these 10 line items, they're used to that. But even traditional lenders, right, they're going to be certain things they're going to be looking for as well, right? So they know, okay, let's talk about your business. What do you need, right? Oh, okay, you're gonna be buying some vehicles. Okay, do you need to buy a building or can you lease a building, right? So they're going to be asking the same kind of questions. It's just that with those entities that specialize in the financing of franchises, like you said, they're used to seeing in certain
things,
way,
certain boxes.
Certain way.
Yeah. And I would say this too. I mean, with your background, I'm telling my audience, like, look, but you have a background in finance. And one of the things that I found with a lot of entrepreneurs, they have the vision about what type of business they want to have. And even, I'm sure it works in the franchise space too. It's like, yeah, I know how to make donuts. I know how to sell donuts, but they don't have a strong business acumen, right, to go with, and that feeds into the 50-50 model, right? Because if you don't have the business acumen to go with the franchise model or the entrepreneurial model, then you can get in trouble. So with you having a finance background, to me, that gives a person working with you an added advantage because you know numbers, you know income statements, you know top line versus bottom line and all of that, so you can assist them in making some better decisions. Is that a fair assessment?
It is, although in full disclosure, I tend to defer to those entities that sort of specialize in that, right?
Okay.
I'm certainly happy to have that conversation with them in terms of sort of, generally you need to be thinking about these kind of things, right? But, I typically defer to either their lender or encourage them to get a CPA.
Yeah, I was going to say
right?
tax advisor.
Because those are the folks who are going to be more closely aligned to them. Once they get this thing open and because whether they're going to be using QuickBooks or going to use a CPA or both, right? That's probably going to be the best friend. If they are not comfortable themselves doing it, that's probably going to be some person who's going to be in the best position to help them out, right?
Okay.
That's typically what I do.
So with that, and we getting into the fourth quarter of the show, let's talk about some of the best, in your opinion, some of the best franchises, not just from a profitability standpoint, but from what I call a survivability standpoint. What are some of the best franchises or some of the top franchises that people should be looking at as we're moving into this more digital era, or is it delivery? We got DoorDash now and all this other stuff. So what would be some of the top franchises if someone was to pose that question to you, like, well, what are some of the top franchises I should be looking at if I'm being interested in acquiring a franchise?
Yep. So I'm gonna stay away from naming specific franchises, right? But I'll talk about industries, right? Because that's probably the best way to do it, right?
That's fair.
So I'd say at the top of the list would say sort of home services and home enhancement, right? So think about services like your trades, your plumbing, your HVAC, your electrical, vent cleaning kind of operations,
landscaping,
right? Because those are things that people have to do, right? So if we talked about AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
AI will enhance certain operations, but somebody still has to go in there and disassemble those that J-trap and P-trap in plumbing. No, AI is not going to do that.
Correct.
Right? So those kind of businesses don't go away. The need for those businesses don't go away. Right? People always have those kind of emergencies. So the trades are there. Right? we talked about roofing. We talk about landscaping work. If you talk about home enhancement, whether you talk about flooring or window treatments or roofing, right? There are certain things about a home you just got to do, right, to maintain your home, to keep the value of your home. And then, what do we see with the pandemic, right? As people were staying at home, they were investing in their home, right? Because they were spending more time, and they're like, I'm spending all this time at home. I want to be comfortable in this thing, right? I'm going to be here for the next 20, 30 years, whatever. I want to be comfortable in it. And so people are investing in that space, right? So that those two spaces, and I talk about home services and home enhancement, is one. Children, right? People still keep having children, keep having babies, right? And so as people have babies and want to give children advantages and give them a leg up, you have tutorial service. I mentioned Kumon or Mathnasium or anything that you talk about enrichment activities or even tutorial kind of activities, right? They have all kind of gym related activities, right? The whole exercise thing is not the same. We were in school, right? So now you've got to get everything's more structured, right?
Right.
So you got so those kind of businesses still again are areas of growth. Pets.
Oh my God!
Pets, particularly dogs.
I think they should be at the top.
Exploded during the pandemic.
I think
right?
they should be at the top because these people in these pets and the pet insurance and I got to get an HMO for my dog. I'm like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
When I used to have a dog. I'm like, let him get sick if he wants. I got something for him.
Go get some grass.
My dog, he got allergies, so I had to give him this medicine for his allergies. I'm like, are you serious?
But even not even talking about that part, just the
maintenance.
Think about our work schedules, right? People working a couple of jobs. We tend to value. I want to work hard. I want to play hard, right? Well, so you working all the time, and gone are the day when you just let your dog outside and they just roam and then they just come back home. So now your dog's in the house all day, either in the crate or just roaming, getting into stuff. And so now you got these daycare centers, right? Because dogs got to have where to spend their energy because they get wild and rambunctious and tear up your house when they. So things like that, right? That's.
I'm laughing, but I'm like, man, that's a huge market.
It's real.
It's a huge market.
It's real.
Oh my God.
Junk. How many do you ever see, you probably if you go to any major intersection and just stand there for an hour, you're probably going to see about 3 or 4 different junk removal companies come through there. Because we've amassed so much stuff in our garages, in our house. People don't even use the garages anymore. Right? Because it's full of stuff.
That's true.
Right? So junk removal businesses, right? It's a simple business. It's not, it doesn't require a lot of, high-tech labor, right?
Yeah. Multi-billion. Yeah.
So
1-800-JUNK.
Things don't have to be complicated, right? But again, I just talked about just some basic kind of industries, right? That are AI is not replacing them. You're not outsourcing to China. Amazon's not going to take. So
that you can still get into it and be profitable.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say this: we're at the top of the hour. So if someone, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. That's number one. Number two. You got to come on so we can continue the conversation because like we started off the show, I don't think we have these type of conversations enough in our community, right? So people start throwing around like I want to buy a franchise or I want to look at franchises. My recommendation is going to be if they don't reach out to you, they need to reach out to a franchise broker because like we were talking about earlier, I would equate you to having a real estate agent, right? Because you're going to be making – outside of your house, if you invest in a business, that's going to be one of the largest investments you're going to make because you're going to have to keep investing in the business in order to keep the doors open. So where and how can individuals get in contact with you specifically?
Yes. So a number of ways. You can certainly reach me by phone. My number is 404-281-7764. So you can reach me there directly. You can reach me on website. And you can reach me also on LinkedIn, right? So I'm on those social media platforms. and we'll provide that for for the guests. But to your point, even if you don't use my services, right? I'll just echo something that Brother Joaquin said, which is work with somebody, right? Because again, there are so many options out there. It can be dizzying, right? And so you want to be able to help someone to work with, so going to help you to sort of figure all that stuff out, right? Sift through all the noise, and really sort of to help to make some suggestions that align with your goals and objectives, right? It shouldn't be about them. It should be about what's good for you. And so, again, when I work with candidates, I'm really looking for your input. I'm really looking for you to help me so that I can help you, right? So I ask a lot of probing questions, but it's really, again, to help you. And it doesn't mean that, as we go through this process, things don't change, because sometimes you can be introduced to something and then it's like, I thought I want to do that and it sounded okay, but now when I know more about it, I want to do something different, right? So it's really kind of an iterative process. So again, flexibility is key, but really just, you just being in tune to who you are and what you want, and being honest with yourself, right? Because franchising or business ownership is not really for everybody, right? It's a great tool for building wealth, there are tax benefits associated with it. There are, there's community benefit. There are a whole lot of benefits of owning a business, but it's really not for everybody. And so that's okay too, right? Doesn't mean you're a bad person. I mean, that's part of having that discussion, right? And thinking about, does it make sense for me? Does it not make sense for me? Franchising is not for everybody, right? It just depends on, again, on the individual. So I'll just sum it up to that.
Hey. Well, again, we got on another expert. Make sure y'all reach out to Eric Chennault, CEO of Franchise Steward. And again, I want to thank you, Eric, for coming on the show. We got to have you come back again, because we got to keep the conversation going. We got to get some people into ownership, because we consuming like crazy, but we got to get more into ownership. So next week, make sure y'all stay locked in with the Daily Bread Radio Show. We got a crazy show next week again. I mean, we've been hitting them back to back. I feel like Kobe and Shaq in the 90s. We got a young lady coming next week. She's going to be bringing, she got the #1 scholarship company in America. I'm going to go on and say it for her, because she humble. She ain't going to say it, so I'll say it for her. Next week, we're going to have Victoria Lamar. So if you have a son, daughter, niece, nephew, grandson, granddaughter, friend, neighbor, church member, anybody that's getting ready to go into that college space, you do not want to miss this young lady next week. When she graduated from Westlake High School, and I'm going to just give you all some quick data points. When she graduated from high school as a senior from Westlake, she graduated with $3 million in available scholarship funds. That's number one. Number two, as she matriculated through college, after she paid for her room and board and tuition, her average refund from this university was $60,000 plus. 60,000 freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So when she graduated, she came back. She said, you know what? I'm going to show other young students how to do the same thing. And the third thing is this. Her company will show you how to get money for grad school as well. So I done been through that path. Eric done been through that path. I can tell you, student loans is one of the biggest debts you will ever accumulate in life. So if you can get a scholarship opportunity, or someone can give you the cheat code where you don't have to have a student loan and you can come out with a degree and you ready to make some money, life is different. So I'm going to say, make sure that you lock in with us next week on the Daily Bread Radio Show. I want to thank you all for everything, all of the kind words. The social media is going nuts. So thank you for supporting the show. We'll see you all next week for more of the Daily Bread Radio Show.
being a lawyer, the writing skill that's required, the intellectual capacity that's required, the persuasive skills that are required, the average person doesn't have them. I'll tell my client, I don't fight for you, I fight with you. People need a voice, they need people to advocate for them.
Clients are like family here. You know, nobody is just a number. When it comes to client service, we want everyone to come out of here feeling better than they did when they came to us. There shouldn't be an idea in anyone's head that their case is not important enough.
But I use my experience as a criminal defense lawyer, my experience as a local government lawyer, and I bring it and borrow those skills to enhance my representation of personal injury clients.
I was commuting to work, and on my commute to work, got rear-ended by a motorcycle in a car. Woke up in the hospital, didn't know what was going on, and everything was a blur. 80% of my livelihood is being active. If I'm not able to show my athletes or show my clients how to do a drill, then they'll go somewhere else. As soon as I was released from the hospital, I saw the bills. And once I saw the bills, I was like, okay, this isn't my fault. I don't know where I'm gonna get this type of money from. And I remembered, I said, oh, let me call the Starkey Law Group. The law group actually understood that I needed to get back in the gym, that I needed to get back on my feet. It gave me a sense of calmness that I can do this and that they will be behind me 100%.
I'm very competitive. You know, played sports all my life, basketball, football, wrestled, did all of that stuff. And now my competition as it relates to the practice of law is making my law practice a viable entity to be able to reach a bunch of people and to help a bunch of people. And you can't do that just being a good lawyer. The Starkey Law Group lawyer is gonna be the superior knowledge lawyer in that courtroom.
If you're looking for someone who's knowledgeable, who's reliable, I wouldn't recommend anyone else but the Starkey Law Group.
We do everything in our power to win a case, from drafting appropriate pleadings in advance to showing up at the scene, equipping our clients to fight alongside us.
Here at the Starkey Law Group, we don't just fight for you.
We fight with you.